Hello, friends, and welcome to the channel. I'm Handington, and today I'm going to be talking about the thing that just happened that I heard about with Devsisters. Now, for those of you who are not in the know, and I'm still rather confused about it myself because I just read it on Twitter, that's where I found out about this. But the Devsisters decided to do something a little stupid. Uh, they are thinking of investing, or not investing. They're thinking of making Cookie Run NFTs, and I was very surprised at the idea of them doing that because I didn't think that they would end up doing something like that. A lot of companies now are starting to do that. I saw a thing that PayPal was trying to get people to do where it's like, hey, sign your friends up to for crypto and get $50 in PayPal, and they use that stupid little like uh, Allegria or whatever art style where it's all the super simplified people and they're just so happy to invest in like this Ponzi scheme. And it's like crypto and NFTs are basically pyramid schemes and also scams, but just like they're scams in general. And it's like, why? So many people are getting on board with this thing, and it's awful. Now, I also read a tweet from Mole Maniac who basically he said a pretty good summary of my feelings on it, where it's just like, again, the Dev Sisters have made such wonderful things. I've enjoyed those wonderful things for a long time now. I'm not gonna, stop enjoying it, but it's pretty stupid, and I do not condone this kind of thing. This isn't the kind of thing that I'd support, and I'm disappointed in them, and I hope that they do better. The Dev Sisters have made some mistakes before. Sometimes they would handle certain like issues or controversies in a way that was not the best. There were a couple of things that they did that were a little bit not too good. There was something about even just down to the fact that they named themselves Dev Sisters to try and make people be like, oh, it's a female development team, and then they find out that they're men, and they're just like, oh, it's something like that to try and stand out, which is a little bit gross, but at the same time, it's just like, well, that's not cool, but like you could have any kind of name. It's not enough to really make you hate the company completely, where it's just like, that's not a good thing, I'm gonna completely ban anything that I have to do with you. It's not that kind of a thing. It's just not a cool move, I gotta say. And there was a couple of things that they've done over the years. There was some top guild that was named after some sort of really bad thing, some sort of like bad group or whatever, and they really didn't do much to take care of that, even though they were on the top, and they were just like, oh yeah, we see it, because obviously they couldn't not see it because it was one of the top guilds. And they didn't really handle that situation very well. They just left it going for quite some time, even after it had been brought to their attention on things. And then there was one or two other things that they had done that I can't remember at the moment. But like the, besides those things, which I think they could have handled better, they've never done anything that was like really a significant issue. Um, that wasn't like, well, you guys are usually pretty nice about the game. It's one of the better gotcha style games where they actually care about making a game first, and then the gotcha app game style is like just part of the way that they make money, as opposed to a money making thing first and then a game, which so many things that come out are like that. Um, and it's very frustrating and disheartening when you hear a lot of things that happen over at companies. So far, at least from what we know internally, Devsisters seems pretty decent. They seem to be pretty good in that regard. So it's like their customer service was really good, and quite often they would end up listening to the community, which so often game companies never end up doing that. So it's not impossible for us to be heard, to just say, no, please don't do this. This is a very scummy thing to do, and I don't want this to be something that represents Cookie Run. Um, so for those of you who don't know, because interestingly enough, one of my friends as well had actually been asking what NFTs are and what the heck those are in the first place. So I want to use this opportunity to try and teach you all about what NFTs are. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not an expert on this, but in layman's terms, here's what NFTs generally are. Basically, when you make something, you technically have, a legal ownership of it. It's just harder to prove that you did make some things. Like if you make a drawing, somebody can't just steal your drawing and then say, "Oh, that's mine," because you don't have a copyright patent, or you don't have a patent or a trademark or an official copyright thing with the bureau or whatever. Regarding how the copyright laws end up working. So when you make something, that thing is yours. Um, when you make something, like if somebody is purchasing work from you, um, like you'll end up selling your labor, and that's what you get paid for in a job, and then you make things for the job, and then you do some other stuff there, so it's like you'd be using the company's thing. So if you're at like a bakery and you bake cookies, you're actually just selling your labor, and the cookies still belong to the company. When you do like an art commission, you'd like figure stuff out ahead of time with how the person is going to like work on things. Because some if people make like adoptables or certain artwork where they're like, yeah, we're going to transfer the official ownership to you when you buy this, and you agree upon that. Maybe you'll have it in like a DM or a text or an email or something like that. Um, that's how that works. Like with adoptable OCs, somebody draws a thing, and you can purchase them and then do stuff with that character. Um, and when you do commissions, somebody else ends up drawing the artwork, so it's their work, but you'd plan on like how you'd agree to that kind of thing ahead of time, where it's like, oh, it would be your artwork. I just want you to draw it like this. Or if you're hiring someone to do artwork for something, then it's like, okay, well, I've hired you to make artwork for this for this thing that we're doing. Um, but you generally end up either keeping your artwork for yourself, and we're just allowed to use it for this, which is what happens with, like, how some movies will ask an artist to be like, hey, we want you to make an original song for this movie. Like, there, I don't know why this is the first example in my mind, but you remember that CGI Peanuts movie? And then they asked the Megan Trainor to write a song. Well, they basically commissioned her. She made a song, and then they were like, all right, well, we're negotiating the terms, so you made this song, we're going to use it for the movie, but you get to keep that song. Whereas other times, somebody like composing the score for another company like that would like the person who made, I don't know, the Lord of the Rings theme. They're making the music for the company, and the company ends up owning that thing. They pay for the ownership of that. They're hiring someone to make this thing for them. Um, all of this is relevant, I assure you. So normally I go off on like tangents that don't make any sense, because I like to just speak, and you're here to listen to words that are mellow and pleasant, hopefully. And I hope that I hope that what I can say is an enjoyable experience. But this is actually relevant to the situation. So the way that crypto works, a lot of people are not too sure about how secure it is, and then everybody you hear goes, "Oh no, it's totally secure because it's on blockchain and stuff like that," and then you wonder, well, what the heck is blockchain? Um, so blockchain is essentially a pile of numbers. It's basically like the secure thing where uh, it's basically, imagine having a whole chain link all in a row. And due to the magic of computer magic, each one of these is like super difficult to hack into. Um, because like the data saved for one of them is inside another thing, and that other thing is saved in another thing. So in order to hack into one thing, you'd have to be hacking into another, and in order to get into that other thing, you'd have to be hacking into another thing, yada yada, and so forth. And it ends up being like a whole ring that the chain ends up making. So let's just that's not the best description of it, but let's just say that for simplicity's sake, because knowing what it is isn't as important as knowing what it does. So the blockchain essentially works where it is something that's called open source. You know, people often describe, oh, it's blockchain, it's open source, it's really secure, and then they just leave it at that. So you know, when you go to a bank, you deposit money, and in their computers they have written down, okay, you deposited this much, you have this much, and or like you paid the bank back for this thing, for like a loan or other stuff. All of those transactions, usually they're just kept to the bank. Well, when it's open source, anybody can see that. uh, I'm not saying that anybody can see your bank information because the bank isn't on blockchain, but the blockchain is a thing that somebody can like set up, and all of the interactions when you purchase cryptos or NFTs or other things like that, everybody can see that you own this thing or you have this thing and all of those other stats and stuff. So this currency is based on whatever this person who or people who create it initially say it's worth. So money is just something that has like an agreed upon value. Like there is technically no inherent worth in an actual single unit of your currency, besides the fact that like it has utility as either a metal coin or a piece of paper or something like that. So we just all agree that this piece is equivalent to a bunch of other things. So banks and official currencies for a country is based on a bunch of things that the government says. Initially it was backed by actual like reserves, where it's like, oh, we have this much gold, and then all of the money here is basically equivalent to that, but rather than physically carrying around the gold, we're just saying that this is the equivalent of X small amount of gold, like an ounce or so, and that's what the United States was initially backed by. So there was like a physical thing that each of these dollary dues represented, and as time went by and inflation ended up happening, then the people who were there were like, okay, well, now you need like 5 of these for one little bit of gold, which is why technically people are like, oh, you should go buy gold, because even if the value of the dollar goes down, gold is still going to stay the same. So if you have like physical savings or whatever, then you would end up buying gold. Or if you just want to have gold or happen to have any gold with you, that's why it's a thing. Um, Funny enough, that's why Bill Cipher was giving legitimate advice in Gravity Falls. Buy gold, buy, because it's a safe investment. Um, and then funny enough, Alex Hirsch actually was on an episode of The Simpsons, where he was Bill Cipher again, and playing off that, he gave terrible advice by trying to trick them, and he just said, "Buy crypto, suckers," because it's a scam. You see, the way that a pyramid scheme works is that the people on the top say, hey, if you buy this, then you can sell this to people underneath you, and then they can sell this kind of thing to people underneath you, and then you can make money. So if you're one of the people at the top, or one of the initial early adopters who can trick people into saying, hey, here's this thing, if you either invest in this company, invest in this product or thing, then you'll make a lot of money. And this is what ends up happening with MLMs, and this is what happens. This is all based off of a thing that Bernie Madoff had done years ago. He made off with a lot of money, but his name was actually Madoff. It's not an original pun, but it's still good. It's still a good pun, even all these years. Basically, he just said, oh, hey, if you give me a pile of money, we're going to be investing in stuff, and we'll make you more money. And so they did that. And the way that MLMs and pyramid schemes, pyramid schemes became illegal after what he did, but MLMs and certain other things tried to get around the direct laws by doing one or two things technically outside of how the law works, where it's like, oh, well, we can't just directly say, oh, we're going to take your money and then not give it to you, but we can offer like this super cheap product that we cost pennies to make, and then we can sell it to you for a ridiculous amount of money, and then if you can turn around and then try and sell this to other people, and so on and so forth, and then we'll try and trick you into making other stuff. Well, NFTs work just like that, except they don't even actually have a physical object. They just have this virtual thing on the blockchain. Now, the issue with crypto isn't that it isn't secure, because anybody could see a change where it's just like, hey, you hacked in. If somebody did somehow manage to hack into it, then there's a whole list of the transactions and the way that it works. So they're like, hey, we saw that you did this. No, because people can keep track of the way that this ends up working. So it's not an issue necessarily that it isn't secure. I mean, obviously, if it's hacked, there's not too much you can do in regards to that, but it's very difficult to hack into it anyway. The issue isn't that it isn't secure. The issue is that you shouldn't buy it, regardless of whether it's secure or not. I could talk to you all about how great this stick is and how much it isn't made of plastic. It's made out of real wood, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should buy it. Uh, See, this log roll kick. But like, just because something is another thing does not mean it is also not some other thing. And sure, crypto might be safe in the sense that it's not going to be hacked into to be like, oh, somebody's going to hack into your crypto account and then you're going to have all of your money drained. It doesn't work like that episode of The Simpsons where Snake put in a little floppy disk into the computer Homer was at, and then just drained all of their finances onto the floppy disk. That's not how that works. Instead, the scam is that you're investing in it in the first place, because there is no agreed upon value for the crypto. It's not backed by anything but the thing that the initial person makes. So what will often happen is you'll buy a bunch of stuff, like the initial creators will sell it for like nothing. They'll buy a ton of the coins, then a bunch of people will get into it. They raise the price because once more people end up buying it, and more people end up having the currency, the more it becomes like meaningful, and the more actual money ends up going in there. So they can start it out and be like, oh, buying one turkey coin, because here in the United States, Thanksgiving is coming up, so turkey. But like, you'll make whatever coin it is, and if they give it a cute name like Dogecoin, which is a meme, or other things like that, to try and entice you to be like, oh, see, isn't this cute? You buy it, and then you are like, oh man, this thing is going to be really valuable at some point. But most cryptocurrencies can't be exchanged in normal businesses. Usually you're just trading your space on the blockchain. Each time you buy a crypto, it's linked to one of those links on the chain that I was talking about, if you imagine it. So basically, when you buy this, you can show everybody, see, I own this one piece on the chain. And a lot of people are like, oh, but what happens if, like, somebody tries to say, no, I actually own that part on the chain. And then that's when they say, oh, but it's actually secure because we have this open deed. There's a whole wall over here that anybody can see that you own this. So, that's not the actual issue, but they kind of try to direct you towards that because they're like, oh, so it's not an issue. Everybody will know that I own this one piece on the chain. But it's not a real chain. You don't even get the value of, like, the iron from owning a single link on the chain. It's just virtual. And the machines and servers that go to run these blockchains in machines cost a ridiculous amount of electricity that goes to waste because it's all in the service of scamming the people who have initially made it. So, you don't want to invest in crypto because you can't really buy most things. At this point, I would say Bitcoin has been around so long that people are like, oh, well, we know Bitcoin, and so far that one hasn't disappeared yet, so one or two places will actually accept it as a currency. which is kind of stupid because it's just like you saying, "Hey, I made 10 goober dollars. Let me buy something with actual money using this." And if enough people actually invest in the goober dollars, like from the SpongeBob movie, and people all end up agreeing on that, then it'll be like, oh, well, a lot of other people have invested in this, so you know what? It's worth actually selling this real thing for this fake currency. That's what ended up happening with like the first transaction. I saw some Game Grumps episode, and they mentioned how like the first Bitcoin, the first crypto transaction was like somebody bought a pizza with the crypto or something like that, which is, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that Bitcoin, out of all of the things, technically ended up being the like the one currency that people were like, oh, okay, no, well, this is kind of legit, and ended up being more expensive. Be careful, because you don't want that. Don't invest in Bitcoin. Okay, don't invest in any crypto, even if Bitcoin is slightly more secure, because it's all a scam. You're not actually buying anything for real. You're basically buying the equivalent of owning like a Club Penguin or a Webkins or something like that. Yeah, except you're trying to exchange. It's the equivalent of trying to exchange like a Club Penguin account for something else. If hypothetically you had to pay to make a Club Penguin account, and the issue isn't that it isn't secure and that somebody will be able to hack into you. The issue is that it would be a scam in the first place. I'm starting to loop around the things that I'm saying. I'm making this far more convoluted than it needs to be. But essentially, I'm just trying to get the point across in a fun way. And yeah, we will get to the NFTs because it's important that you understand cryptocurrency, because NFTs are essentially similar to that. So when people end up buying these cryptocurrencies, they exchange actual money for fake money, and the only reason why it has any value is to try and sell it to somebody else. Like, hey, I have this many turkey bucks. If I sell this to you, then if you give me real money for it, you get to own the turkey bucks. And then maybe you can sell that to somebody else who owns the turkey bucks. And when people end up buying more of the unowned initial turkey bucks that are already out there, that the creators had initially made, so the creators can create however many of the coins that they want, and everybody can see it, so they can't just secretly come up with the money, but they can be like, let's make 1,000,000 of these coins. So if you buy it initially, now it goes from whatever the cost is to renting the server space, essentially, which wouldn't be very much, and they sell it for a whole lot of these virtual currencies on this blockchain. You end up buying one link on a chain that just has some cute name to it. When you purchase that, you end up adding more value to it. So a lot of the times, these people who make it will purchase a ton of it while it's pretty cheap. So they're like, all right, one turkey coin is worth 1 US cent, let's say. So they buy like $1,000 worth of it and get millions of the coin. Then uh, let's say that they end up having like 5 million coins. Then they try and sell it off to people, and the value of the currency comes from other people trying to sell that to other people, or other people, but the actual value gets added when they buy it like fresh. So when you end up buying crypto from the source, and there's only just so many of the coins that are out there, you add money to the value. So the coin will end up starting off at 1 cent, but after like the creators buy a million of the coins, it'll end up being worth, let's say, $100,000 for one of them, or more reasonably, let's say it'll be worth like a few $100s. So it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll buy this. And when you end up buying a few of those, now the overall price of it goes up. So now it'll end up being like $300 to buy it. So people who have the crypto decide to say, hey, I'm going to sell this to you while it's 300, and if more people end up buying it, it'll be worth like 400, and so on and so forth. And the idea is that the currency will end up being worth a lot of money in the future, where it'll be like, oh, each of these is going to be like $10,000, $50,000, and then you can exchange one of these for that equivalent of something else. So it's just like, oh, I'll trade you a car for this $50,000 Bitcoin, my imaginary link on the chain. See, it's secure, it's not going anywhere. But there's no actual thing. Like, it's not actually a thing that you're exchanging for. It's just a virtual thing that is supposedly worth this because a bunch of people decided it was worth this. And most of the time, what happens with cryptos is that the people who ended up putting in a pile of coins when it was very inexpensive either sell a whole pile of this to other people, or they get rid of it at a higher price and they run away. They just leave it to die. They cash all of that money out that was invested into the Bitcoin itself, and they just run off with it. So now everybody just has a link on this imaginary chain that isn't worth anything. And that's what ends up happening with most cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin was one of the only ones that hasn't done that yet, but now they are so expensive, like, it is not even worth it unless you somehow had Bitcoin, like, years ago that you invested in. So don't buy any Bitcoin now, because also at any point, hypothetically, they could leave. Or whoever owns Bitcoin could sell it to somebody else who like they'll sell the whole ownership of like overseeing the chain. They'll sign that right over, and then whoever does that could just cash out everything, and then you go broke, and it'll make the cryptocurrency worth zero. So you could end up losing entire life savings into somebody saying, hey, buy this imaginary link on a chain, I swear it's worth a ton of money. And unfortunately, people do. NFTs are very similar to this. That is essentially what an NFT is as well, except rather than it being just some imaginary link, you actually get to see what thing it is. So let's say Bitcoin. What does a Bitcoin look like? Nothing. Besides maybe a logo for the little bee with the little money sign on it. That's basically all that you would imagine a Bitcoin being, all right? But one Bitcoin would look like another, which looks like another, which looks like another, and they all just look like Bitcoins. That's it. They're all just one currency thing, and it doesn't even look like that. So what NFTs are is that every single link in the chain has some unique design. And most of the time, the artwork for it looks disgusting. The most famous one are these really gross looking chimps. So basically, what an NFT is essentially a cryptocurrency, but with a cute little picture on it instead of it having like a general picture. So Dogecoin, all of the coins look like that one little Doge. But Doge NFT would be somebody doing like terrible drawings because they have to draw so many for every single one of these that exists out there that they end up just mass producing them and they end up looking like garbage. Basically, they end up making an individual picture for each of these, and they say, hey, we're going to sell you the rights to own this picture, like you were buying a commission from somebody, or one of those adoptables, pretty much. Except instead of it being like an adoptable where, hey, I want the rights to this character that somebody is giving away, and I'm going to buy it from you because I like this design, and now it's basically my character, you've given me the rights over to it, and it's like a firm handshake, and you're not selling those for, like, as a currency. You end up just basically it is basically the equivalent of commissioning somebody for a character, except they just design it, and if you see it and you like it, then you get it. So this, you buy a digital version of like a piece of art. So you know how fine art is just like, oh, you purchase a painting because it was painted, there's just one single painting itself, and the physical thing is what makes it really like special. So like the Mona Lisa was initially painted. That's an actual physical painting that's there. That's what makes it valuable, because it's an actual thing that somebody ended up making. Usually it would also have to contribute to furthering art in some way, or have some sort of special meaning. But, fine art itself is, after a while, pretty much a scam, because there's plenty of art out there that's just pretentious and looks like garbage. You'll see somebody on Twitter who just puts up a drawing casually, they're able to finish in like 10 hours. It's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen in your life. So, essentially, there, when somebody makes a drawing, it would appear on like Google Images, or you can just screenshot it, or right click and save as for the picture, because that's how that works. When you see a picture online, you're like, oh, I can make a copy of that. Like, that's why there are watermarks over Photoshop, and not Photoshop, like photo galleries, like Getty Images and stuff like that, where they put a little watermark over a lot of the things, and then when you buy it, you can get the full image. And sometimes people will post the full image, and you can just copy it and do it there. But you don't actually have the right to do that. If you use a picture from like Getty Images that doesn't have the watermark, and you didn't pay for the license. So what NFTs are is, instead of paying for a license to use the image, you're just paying to own that part of the blockchain which is linked to this image. And once you have that image, you have the right to show it or use it or do other stuff like that. But the entire thing is digital. So if you're actually like, oh, I like this piece of art, let me buy it, you could buy a commission from an actual artist and actually help support them and do something substantial, instead of investing in essentially a scam. Because people don't act like this artwork is something nice that you're adopting, or a commission or something like that. No, no, no. You're just buying a link in a blockchain, which also gives you the right to own, or have this picture. And they're just like, now don't share this picture around. So you're not really, like they try and make it seem like you're buying a very unique image, basically as a way of just tricking you into buying crypto. And people act as if it's crypto, and they can be like, oh, I want to exchange your real world money for this monkey coin. And then you'll have a picture of a monkey on a little circle, and that's it. Now, technically, it is, you're not supposed to copy it over, because you wouldn't have the right to use that image. Like if you put up an image in a video and you're just like, here's the coin, then you're like, hey, you don't have the rights to use that image, that's mine. Unless, of course, you're doing it for like some sort of way in which it would fall under fair use. But essentially, they're like, oh, no, you can't distribute it. Which obviously that doesn't happen. So you're not even buying like a physical piece of art. It's basically, you're buying the right to own this one piece of art that is in a collection of artwork. So it's not even like you're commissioning something. You just own the deed to a virtual thing. That's like trying to sell somebody. You know how in Wind Waker you get the deed to the house? That's like trying to sell the deed, like somebody's save file in a Zelda game, where you own the deed to the virtual house, to somebody else for real money. And then let's just say everybody agrees that this is now a currency. And then people end up exchanging GameCube memory. No, they don't even have the GameCube memory cards, because that would be a physical thing. They don't even have that. They just exchange like, oh, here's an image of me getting the deed. Don't screenshot this or copy it around to anybody else. This version is mine, which never ends up happening. But that's only for the artwork side, you see. Because if this sounds confusing, it's because I'm not doing the best job explaining it. But it also is confusing. If somebody ends up copying the artwork, that's not as much of the issue. Because why would anybody actually want most of the artwork on here? Because it looks gross when people sell NFTs. But, excuse me. Basically, you buy the right to say, see, I own this. And that's all you can do with it. And then you try and sell it to somebody else in the same way that you do that crypto example that I gave before. Throw away the Zelda example that I was giving. That's garbage. That's just making things more complicated. Um, so that whole thing where you're exchanging stuff around, that's basically what NFTs are. They're just cryptocurrency, except also there's a little piece of art to entice you into buying it. So, what would hypothetically the Devsisters NFCs be? Or NFTs? Oh my gosh, I'm explaining how this works. Um, no, NFC. Oh my gosh, I can't forget if it's NFC or NFT. I'm an idiot. I think they're NFCs. My brain is shot. Anyway, so basically, I'd imagine they would draw a version of the Cookie Run characters, or possibly even use one of the drawings already made, and then sell cryptocurrency tied to the characters. And I'd imagine they probably wouldn't sell too many because there's only just so many cookies out there, unless they did some sort of other drawing, like they do Ginger Brave, but just a whole bunch of sloppy variations. So, like, this version of Ginger Brave is worth $10,000 and stuff like that. It's a pretty scummy thing to do, and unfortunately, a lot of companies are starting to get into it because they realize that it's a legal way that they can scam people out of money. Um, so at least the Devsisters asked, or something like that. They either announced that they were thinking of getting into it, or they were like, "Hey, what do people think of Cookie Run NFTs or NFCs?" One of those means near field transmissions, and the other is the thing that it stands for, and I forget. Um, I'm trying to make this a simple layman's version of this, the way that to explain this, and I'm just making it very complicated, so I apologize. Near field cookies, they're NFCs. There we go. So essentially, they would be scamming people into it, into buying this fake currency tied to these charming characters that we like, which is pretty not cool. That's pretty not good. Now, I don't, knowing the Dev Sisters, I'd imagine they wouldn't necessarily be trying to do it as a scam, because again, they do loot boxes and other stuff like that, but they're also a bit more fair in regards to it as opposed to a number of other places. So I could see them investing in this and being like, oh, we only have this for like the 200 or so cookies that we already have had made. You get to buy it. It's a pretty cool thing. In their minds, they're just, I think in their minds, they weren't necessarily like, hey, let's scam people into this, and more like, hey, the company could use some more money. What if we sell some pictures of the cookies? Like, you wouldn't buy the rights to the cookies, by the way. That's not how the NFCs would work. You just buy a drawing of them. And you would just buy the rights to use that drawing as well. So if you sold it, you can't even, have the rights to that drawing of yours. Because it's not yours. But essentially, they would be like, hey, we'll get into this thing that's really popular now. You'll get to buy your very own cookie, and it'll end up being worth other stuff. Won't that be cool? So I will give them that much of the benefit of the doubt that I don't think that they're trying to necessarily scam people out of it. They're just like, this is a way that we can make money, and we'll do it using our characters. How do people feel about this? Even though at any point, just by the very nature of how NFTs work, one day they'll end up closing it down. That's just kind of how servers end up working. And it'll go the way of all the people who paid money into Cookie Wars. It's just like, oh, well, it's gone now. If they close it, then they'll make a pile of money, and then you'll lose a ton of money on this fake virtual currency that just uses the cute cookies to entice you to buy it. One of my friends was worried about accidentally making an NFT. As long as you don't tie your artwork to the blockchain, you won't have to worry about selling it. Like, when you get stuff in Cookie Run, you're not accidentally buying an NFT. You're not accidentally buying into a scam or anything like that. This is a totally separate thing. But it's basically a pretty scummy thing for them to want to do anyway, because they would be selling essentially cryptocurrency based off this, and cryptocurrency is essentially a scam. You're not going to be able to go to some company and say, I'm going to sell you this image of Ginger Brave for $1,000. So there's really not that much of a use for it either, because it's not something necessarily that you would invest in widespread. It would just be because you like the Cookie Run artwork, to which you could just ask somebody to commission you artwork, and then you'll have a cool drawing and then support a smaller artist instead of having it run on a machine to keep this blockchain going. Because like the reason why you can't really hack it is because it's on a server, just like how it's difficult to hack online play. Sometimes people hack their clients, which is how they're able to cheat on online games. But it's very, very difficult to actually hack into a server. So all of the little like links on the chain are backed up by another link on the chain, and each one is backed up by another server which is running. So the fact that it never goes out and it's always like set to a certain thing, imagine the server is like somebody standing there constantly making sure the number is set to whatever it's set to. So if somebody tries to hack it, they're like, no, 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 no. We see what number this is supposed to be. It's a computer that's always running. So it's not like this is something harmless where you'll just purchase a cute little drawing or whatever. It's not a good thing. It is a very not good thing. It's bad for the environment, because they also those extra servers that are made for these scams end up generating a lot of extra heat, and use up energy that could be used for actual issues and things. And you might as well just buy a drawing, because you could get that drawing and it's or somebody like you commission somebody on their like Twitter to be like, hey, can you draw this really cool Cookie Run fan art for me? And we'll draw it. They'll put it up there. The data is saved to like wherever Twitter's servers are. Just the way that the regular social media ends up working, and it's not tied to some sort of ever churning computer that is keeping that basically acts like a currency. Each of those things in the blockchain is like a computer somewhere else that is running, in order to make sure that this one thing has value. It's basically like you have some sort of magical engine, like some sort of steam engine running somewhere, and as long as that engine is running, then you'll somehow materialize a fake dollar in your hand. But if that ever goes out, then poof, it'll disappear. Except you don't even have that physical thing. It's all virtual. It's nothing. It could disappear at any point. And it's garbage. So, while I don't think the Devsisters are necessarily trying to be like, hey, invest in this and then we'll just run away, because most of the time they disappear off the map, and Devsisters is still a company that makes a game thing. So I'll give them that benefit of the doubt. But basically, even if they have good intentions, by virtue of you making it in the first place, you are scamming people because you are not offering anything for it. It would be, when you buy stuff in this game for a virtual currency and you use it to help you have fun playing the game, and that fun that you have playing the game, like you buy virtual crystals, and on their servers they have like just a singular number just saying, okay, your account has this many crystals, and then that's it. It's pretty simple. It's just saved there, and then when you access it via the internet, they load in the amount of money that you have, so it syncs up, so you can't be cheating. But you buy it to help you have fun playing in the game. It lets you do stuff. The reason why you would actually purchase something that doesn't have any inherent value, which is how they're able to legally get around like loot boxes and other stuff, is because it doesn't have any inherent value. Now imagine trying to sell these actual things, these actual crystals. If you could somehow take the crystals in this game and give them to somebody else, that's what NFTs are. Because rather than it being saved on like the Devsisters' smaller servers, it's saved on some other general server that's always running. It's difficult to explain, because the Devsisters servers would be running to play a game, and it's actually providing a service. It's not just running in order to fuel a scam. So there's actually like, some sort of cool thing that happens when it's running. It also isn't a continuous thing that, like, when you sign into the game, that's when it loads up your information, as opposed to it always running even when you're not using it in order for it to work. So that's why those servers create so much extra heat, and so much extra electricity, because they're just always going. So it isn't even like buying the virtual currency, but essentially, crypto would be like if I were to sell you some of my crystals. But because it's tied to a blockchain, it's not like the Devsisters when they give out gifts of crystals where they could just do that at any point, and it's just like, oh well, that would make it worthless to buy this thing. It's like, oh, this is an actual unit of something that I can legally transfer over to you. It's garbage. Don't buy it. If you take anything out of this entire tirade, it's that even the most well-intentioned of cryptos or the most well-intentioned of NFTs are all scams. Never buy into them. Even if your friend does it, don't buy into it. Don't get into it at all, because even if you get in early, even if you are able to sell the crypto, any actual profit you make will be based off scamming someone else out of their money. Even if it stays around, part of why people actually have the value of the Bitcoin as it is because so many people lost their life savings. The money has to come from somewhere, and it comes from scamming somebody else. So buying an NFT is the equivalent of buying coins in or crystals in this game, but you don't even have the fun of using it for the purposes of using it like in this game. You're just owning a virtual deed to it, and the only thing you can do with that virtual deed is try and sell it to somebody else. You get nothing. And NFTs, or NFCs, excuse me, over cryptocurrency make it just entices you to want to do it more because there's a cute picture involved. So they're just like, oh, well, you can buy the scam and you get this cute little picture to go with it, as opposed to not getting that with crypto. I could have just said that, and we could have saved. How long is this video? I've been able to go through like 3 different refreshes for 10 minutes, so I've been going on for like 40 minutes, I think. Too long. Far, far too long. But that's what's going on, and that's a bit of an issue. So, Devsisters, please do not make any more NFTs, NFCs. Oh my gosh, which is it? I always keep confusing these because I only just like figured out how this works, so I'm happy to try and tell other people how it works. I just don't remember if it's a T or a C at the end, but I know that it's a scam. So don't invest in crypto. Don't invest in NFCs or NFTs. No, wait. NFC, near field communication. NFT is like near field. No. I think it's actually NFT. Yeah. NFCs are what like amiibos use to transmit data. So you get an amiibo and it's able to be read on like the Switch using a type of technology called NFC, which is like a little radio, imagining it that way. NFTs are a scam. There we go. I am an idiot. Oh my gosh. But a well-intentioned idiot. So, again, Devsisters, I don't think you would end up watching a random video from my channel that goes on for this long. But this is why it's an issue. This is what it is in general, which is why you shouldn't get it in general. And I'm disappointed in them for offering it. I don't think that they are irredeemable, and I also don't think that the intention is to try and hurt people by doing this, as opposed to most of the reason why NFTs happen. But I imagine they did their research and know how it works. And when you know how it's like once you know how it works, and you're not just like, oh, hey, I don't know what this thing is, but a lot of people are doing it. Let me see if I can make one. You basically can't make an NFT without knowing that it's a scam. by virtue of if you have the wherewithal to set it up, either you or let's say some sort of like shady friend of yours is just like, hey, you want to make an NFT with me? That's basically the only way, and you're just like, oh, sure thing, or golly gee willikers. That would probably be the only way that you could ever make an NFT without knowing that it's a scam. So don't do this. I think they know that it isn't actually going to be, you know, just for a good-natured thing. I think that they know that it doesn't have any inherent value, and unlike a game, it isn't even providing a service. But they would just sell it because it's a popular thing now, and they want to try and get in on it early because they're just like, hey, this is a way that we're able to make some money. We have a property that's now starting to take off. I don't think that this was like their plan all along to try and get people to like Cookie Run over 10 years before selling crypto. So I don't think it's like some sort of orchestrated scheme that they're doing. It's just, hey, here's a way we can make money. We're going to use it with this. People aren't actually buying anything but the right to do this. But you know what? If they want to, they want to, and then we can do it. Basically, they're just providing the option for people to just donate money to them for basically nothing in return. But at the cost of having a whole bunch of servers running and taking up valuable resources that, could be spent on not that. You know how hard it is for people to make power, and now it's just being used to just get money from people? It's garbage. You might as well just buy something in Cookie Run if you're going to spend any of that money, because it's basically just about as valuable. No real world value for these coins or crystals or anything like that. But you're also not going to be able to sell it to somebody as if it was worth something and scam somebody out of lots of money. It's something that I would be willing to forgive them if they just said, okay, sorry about that, we messed up. We won't be selling this thing. We didn't realize just how bad it was, which I'm not necessarily sure if I would necessarily believe. But if they were just like, we thought it was a nice way to earn a little bit of extra money with this, but this is going a bit too far because it's crypto, and crypto is a scam because there's no inherent value to it. Like we saw it as just a cute way to buy some Cookie Run artwork, but it's really much more of a scam. Or it can be used in worse ways. People would end up selling it around, and it wouldn't be what we had wanted it to be. So instead, we'll just not do it. Or if they really just want to sell some nice Cookie Run artwork, maybe by some of the developers or something like that, they'll have something where it's just like, hey, commission the Devsisters. You pay them a little bit of money. They make a design your own cookie by the official artists for a contest or something like that. And then they'll put it up. It'll be a thing that everybody can see. There's no actual like value to sell that to somebody else. Where it's just like, oh, this is my designed cookie, so I'm going to sell this right over to, excuse me, I'm going to sell the rights of this to you, and then you have this, and it's just like, well, I'm going to sell this to somebody else, and I try and make money for it. No, they'll just commission some really cool artwork made by the official people. They'll earn a little bit of money for it. You'll get to have something cool that everybody gets to see and enjoy. It'll just be posted on, like, I don't know, maybe some sort of either their Twitter or a separate Twitter or something like that. You get a chance to have them just draw a thing, and it's cool. And then they just do that. And it would just be like, oh, okay, so they're just doing it because they wanted to make some actual artwork or something like that. Because at this point, it's just the idea. We don't even know if it's going to be, what they're going to do artwork-wise for it. But if they're actually doing it just to try and sell some cool art officially, I mean, how cool would it be if, like, Sega had a contest where they were like, hey, what if you could buy a chance or buy, like, a slot for the official artists to make your OC, or something like that. That would be pretty cool. I would love if they did that instead, because that would be getting other people. In fact, even if they don't end up hiring like the official artist, if they hire somebody who can do the Cookie Run style well, then they could have somebody else do it. They could be like, oh, this other artist that we've hired is going to end up drawing the artwork for you, so you'll end up paying, and they'll earn a cut, and then we'll earn a cut, and then we'll be able to make an official, like, fan-made cookie thing. We'll even post up on our Twitter, and it'll be a really cool event. Something like that, that would be wonderful. That would be a pretty nifty thing. You'd end up supporting another artist, they would end up making money, and it wouldn't be tied to some sort of crypto scam that would be attempting to try and get money from people and be a crypto. And NFTs are not just some sort of harmless thing. They are bad. Just make a drawing and then people will enjoy it. That is all I have to say on this matter. It took a very long time to explain that. I hope me just doing some of my daily stuff was fun. Um and this was at least something cool to look at while I'm doing some things. I've talked for a very long time. Oh, look at this. I've earned quite a number of these electroids. It's a good thing that these electroids aren't NFTs. See, look at this. I've exchanged for a good, and now I'm going to get another virtual good for the fun of being able to see the numbers go up. And that adds value in my life, as opposed to an NFT, which does nothing and provides nothing for anyone. In fact, it doesn't even provide the fun of seeing the picture. You could just go and look at all the pictures that are up there because they're public. And if you see the pictures and you're like, I like that picture, you could just copy the picture and just screenshot it. And then that's the value that you get out of it. So it's garbage. Don't invest in NFTs. Devsisters, please do not make NFTs. Please do not invest in crypto. NFTs are basically crypto, but with an enticing thing over it. Just an enticing allure of being able to technically own a picture. And with that, I think I am finished with my very long speech about how the heck that works and why it's not good if Devsisters is doing this. I hope I have not bored you. I hope this has been interesting. I hope this has been a bit more of a fun way to learn about it. In case you've been wondering for a while, I hope that you've been able to just listen to this in the background. Because I'm not really doing much else besides playing the game a little bit. And just doing some dailies. But, like, I hope this can actually help inform somebody. I hope that this can be spread around and people can learn to be more careful. It's just the more that you know, the better you grow. And I must not fail the princess. Well, you'll be failing the princess if you end up making NFTs. So don't do that. Oh, look, it's the Ginkovlin chest. Coin magnet. That's what'll happen if the Devsisters end up selling NFTs. Alright, I'm gonna end this here. Thank you for listening to this video. I hope that this video provided some sort of value in your life. Take care, everyone, and this is Handington signing off. Bye.